he's come to our another sections. So now we are having another topic called from Bob. He is the CEO and founder from Interzoid, and then he will talk about the cloud database, ELT, APIs, etc. So Bob, are you ready for your speech?
I'm ready. It's great to be back in Hong Kong, even if virtually.
Yeah, it's okay. So your voice is good. So I will pass the time to you. So let you start. Thank you.
Okay, great. So yes, my name is Bob Brauer, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Interzoid, and we're an API first company. And we focus on helping organizations use those APIs to improve the quality, the value, and the usability of all of their data. So everything they do with that data is much more effective and successful. So today's discussion, my talk is about some trends in data, specifically data in the cloud, and how these trends are affecting and will affect our APIs and API ecosystem that we've seen the last couple of years. So I won't go too deep into some of these topics in 20 minutes, of course, but I think an overview of these trends, hopefully you will find useful and will perhaps provide the basis for some new ideas and opportunities for whatever it is in the API space that you happen to be doing. So I'll discuss briefly the past, especially from a data perspective, to see where we've been and paint the picture to what has led to the current environment and what has driven these trends. Also talk about the current challenges we're facing, both in the API and cloud data spaces, so we can get an appreciation of some of the inhibitors that are preventing us from getting to where it is we want to go as an industry, including some of the dirty little secrets, so to speak, and some of the challenges we're facing. And then, of course, prognosticate on how some of the trends that we're seeing will affect and drive what I think is in a very positive way the API landscape as a whole. And so, we can identify where some of those opportunities might be. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about where we've been and just a little bit of a journey into the past here. So, one interesting trend is the progression of the database industry. So some of you that are younger may not recognize some of these earlier names, but looking back a couple of decades, we were in the early days of the commercialization of relational database systems, client server, network-based offerings from companies like Oracle, Informix, Sybase, IBM's DB2, in the emergence of Microsoft SQL Server, which is still around today. But at that time, it was all enterprise. There was no pay-as-you-go licensing, but instead only enterprise pricing, with extensive installation requirements, nothing on the cloud. But back in those early days, we did see the need for data connectivity. So, technologies like ODBC emerged to provide some of that connectivity, ODBC drivers, which are still in use today, other forms of middleware. We saw terms like data marts and OLAP grew from this. And the early concept of our data warehouses really started to emerge. So whoops, make sure on the right slide. Yeah, so the reporting tools such as Crystal Reports were there. And we even had 4GL technologies to try to get the proverbial business user to be able to communicate and ask questions of databases and so forth. So this served as well for a couple of decades, kind of a client-server database approach. And about 5 years ago, things started to shift. So as applications moved to the cloud development tools became more sophisticated. Databases were more tightly integrated with these advanced websites. So naturally, it started to make more sense for the data that was needed within these applications to move to the cloud where it was more readily accessible and closer to where it was being used. And of course, with all of the managed infrastructure and pay-as-you-go business models, the idea of storing important data on the cloud was becoming more attractive. So the emerging cloud market really started to emerge, and Snowflake is kind of the poster child, since they came out of nowhere to become a leader in the cloud database space. But of course, Amazon already had cloud database offerings, and Microsoft and Google were right behind them. Snowflake IPO'd and went from unicorn status to a $50 billion market cap. And Gartner sees 75% of all databases being deployed to the cloud in 2022. You can see the evidence of this growth with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and some of the other cloud database providers, growing at 30% year over year. And the venture capital market has borne this out with, investments almost daily. So fast forward a little bit, and, you can see how many different types of offerings that there are in this space. I mean, just about every major database platform provider now has a cloud version of their database product. Even Oracle has a cloud database offering. So, Redis, Google, SAP, Teradata, all of these have cloud offerings. Even NoSQL is getting its wings. And so, you can see that the race for data infrastructure real estate is absolutely booming. And so, to discuss another trend that's of interest to us in the API space, now that we have a sense of where we're headed from a cloud database platform perspective, you may be familiar with the traditional term ETL. As we want to move data to the cloud, there's always been ways to move data, and traditionally there was a term known as ETL, which kind of became the standard method to move data to data warehouses for analysis from operational systems. First, you would extract data from its sources, and then the IT organization would apply various rules to transform the data. That was essentially the T. And transform it into the shape it needed, per the specifications of a data warehouse, which usually involved a data cleansing step of some kind. And then that transformed data would be loaded to the warehouse. And this, of course, always had an IT bottleneck with their various backlogs, making it often, a difficult and time-consuming but necessary process. Now, in the cloud database era, with much less friction in data availability and far less costs in data storage, the trend has started to shift to more of an ELT process, where the data is extracted and immediately loaded and available in a cloud data warehouse, at which point transformation can begin within the data warehouse, or the all-encompassing data lake is another term, of course, you often see today. And this gets at least some data to its users more quickly, and when transformed, readily available, but also provides that raw data, which the transformed data evolves from. And so in an era of data science and various other, data strategies and disciplines, it can be very useful to have access to all of the data as part of the analysis, because you never know exactly what it is you're going to need. So it's kind of a basic description of ETL and ELT. If you're not familiar with them, it's more the order in which you're doing things. So to drill into this a little bit more, you can see the kind of a comparison diagram of ETL versus ELT, showing some of the data sources from which data might be extracted from. It could be cloud sources, various external sources, website forms where you're collecting data, mobile forms, enterprise scenarios, IoT devices. It could be coming from many different places. Now you can, it also includes a function of time on the bottom in comparing ETL versus ELT. So ETL does provide more control over the data from the IT organization, which of course might be useful in compliance, for example, but still is a slower process, and ultimately results in in more concise data in a data warehouse, where in the bottom scenario, the data is more quickly available as it's loaded. There's much more of it that could be used in various analytic scenarios, has data lineage essentially built in. So, you might want to go back and look at the raw data for some purpose. You never know where data science or, machine learning analysis is going to take you. So you have access to all of the data. And I kind of, if you're familiar, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of cliff notes or various types of book summaries that you can purchase versus having an entire book. And I think, having the entire book at your disposal as an analogy is a much more richer experience. And what this essentially means is that you're going to get data faster, you're going to have more data, more access, and more freedom, which in turn is really going to drive API usage. Now, that said, these are not necessarily mutually exclusive approaches. I think there's a place for both, but the trend in the era of the cloud database is definitely more data faster. And I think we will continue to see a lean more towards ELT versus traditional approaches. And just as some examples of the various applications, as we feed more and more data up into the cloud in our various cloud data warehouses, we're seeing for a few years now, there's some of the dramatic success that we've had with data science, some of the advanced analytics that is taking advantage of this data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and on and on. So the next question, of course, is, well, all this data that we're moving to the cloud at just incredibly accelerated levels, can that data be trusted? This is customer data, marketing data that we're collecting, operational data is all moving to the cloud from these disparate sources for analysis, marketing campaigns, customer communication, all the things that we've talked about. But is the data usable? Can we really trust it? So that's one of the challenges that, it's difficult to know. I mean, the data can come in and show so many different shapes and sizes and formats, making it difficult to organize, verify, and make use of, especially when you have such little control over the actual data sources. And so now, you're beginning to see a lot of challenges that is slowing down because we're having a lot of the same traditional challenges we've always had with data. Is it redundant? Is it inconsistent? Is it accurate? And so the question is, it's hard to tell if the data can really be trusted. Just some quick, simple examples that we often find in our cloud data warehouses. Clearly you can see in the slide, in a lot of work that I've done, there's 100 different ways to say Geico. A lot of times this data is collected from forms and, using OCR technology or different ways to collect that data. There's so many different variations in the way data can be represented electronically at the value level. You can see some different examples here with HSBC that we've encountered as just some examples of organization names that can be inconsistently represented in a database, making the whole concept of things like data science and different ways to use this data very difficult. Any data strategy is only as good as the usability of the data that you're making use of. And of course, individual names like you see here on the slide as well, Fred, Frederick, Freddie, different spellings of last names, and most of this is Western data, but these, types of unstandardized types of data can be real challenges to getting us to the next point of, where we are in trying to make use of all the data that's rapidly moving to the cloud. And as a result of that, you're seeing things like data engineering and data programming really moving to the forefront, especially if you're looking for jobs, because these are the kinds of challenges that people are having now. How can we spend less time actually programming and massaging or doing whatever it is we need to do the data to make it useful, so all these applications that we're building we can make use of. And so you're hearing data wrangling and cloud data quality and data refinement, removing the data format friction, because the data comes in different shapes and sizes, and trying to move it from one place to another, the simple things like converting a date can be difficult. And that's why the data engineering services market is growing at 20% per year, because these are the challenges that we're facing now. Is how can we make the data better so everything we do with that data can be much more effective. So that kind of brings us to APIs. Where is the opportunity here? Is this a place that that the APIs can really grow from? With all the data that's pouring into the cloud at an accelerating and unprecedented levels, even with some of the aforementioned data challenges, I think APIs provide a tremendous opportunity, because it's the best data conduit that there is. And that's why, APIs are thriving so much. So this data flow, this movement of cloud data, bringing, utilizing ELT, like we've talked about, I think going forward is going to create an unprecedented opportunity in the API space. When data exists and lives in the cloud rather than within the confines of an enterprise, there's much less friction around that data and so many different things that we can do. So there's several categories of APIs I think are going to thrive and represent tremendous growth opportunities. Simple examples are data enrichment APIs, providing the ability to easily via API append existing third-party data to data that we already have in our cloud data warehouse or data lake. Could be, extensive information about a category of prospects a sales team might be targeting and want to do some analysis on. APIs that pump data from various collection points around the web and the internet or mobile devices or IoT can be of tremendous value. Some of the data engineering related APIs that help transform, cleanse, and validate data for accuracy will help solve some of the previously discussed data quality, data usability challenges. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to create new APIs which solve some of these challenges. I think it's a ripe environment for that. And an interesting thing is, I think it will be easier. We're seeing more of this for aligned companies or partner companies with so much accessible data readily available in their cloud data warehouses, with a lot of that friction eliminated, to share that data in some cases and help each other reach desired outcomes. I think if we've got a lot of data in our organization, why are we all reinventing the wheel? And I think you're going to see a big build out in APIs that help organizations connect and utilize and help each other with their vast cloud data stores. And so, there's a bit of legwork to do, as we showed with some of the data engineering challenges. But I think, if you've been in the API space for a while, it feels like it's taken some time to grow at the levels we've all expected. But I think this movement of data to the cloud is really a way to bring about the long-awaited golden age of APIs. And so I think it's very exciting times ahead of us for the API crowd, and the emergence of cloud databases is really going to be an accelerator. And of course, data is the future, and APIs are really what helps make data move. And so I think all of us that are focused on the space are all really in a good place. So to summarize, there's accelerating trends of database systems moving to the cloud. Just look around, you can see that. Also, new data approaches such as ELT are paving the way for even more acceleration and more data moving to the cloud. And then, of course, there are still some data engineering challenges to overcome. But these trends in cloud data, and specifically cloud databases and ELT, I believe will likely lead the way to the golden age of APIs to finally be upon us. And so hopefully that's good news for all of us. And that's it.
Okay, hi Bob. So thanks for sharing. And then
Sure.
yeah, I'm not an expert on the data part, but I can feel the benefit if talking about doing that thing on the cloud, especially for company like us. We don't have a very experienced data scientists or actually DBA focus on that thing, and then we can hands off to those cloud. But I have one quick question, because I was also
Sure.
from enterprise. So how can we what is your view? Okay, for a large enterprise, like we talk to a lot of company like bank, enterprise, or telco, they have actually maybe millions of data, trillions of data. But how can they take this move? Because it is too heavy for them, I would say. Or you can see this trend is more from some brand new stuff, brand new business, that stuff from scratch. Do you have any quick suggestion? If they have already got a bunch of data, how can they resolve the internal bottleneck, internal pushback, etc.? Can you share your experience?
Yeah, so what I've learned is that in general, a lot of folks they don't recognize what kind of data challenges that they have. Yeah, it's kind of a lot of the vendors that push a lot of analytics technologies and all these different things that you can now do with the data. And they kind of leave out the steps, say, hey, but this all depends on you having good, accurate, comprehensive, very usable data. Garbage in, garbage out, that whole story. And so I think if you really want to have success in an organization, in a data stewardship approach, or as a data centric organization that really focuses on data quality, you have to be able to demonstrate that some of these issues really exist. And so the first step is always analysis and identifying and showing people within the organization who may not easily understand what the data issues that they might be having in their organization might be. So if you can show them and say, look, in our company, we have 25 different ways that we're representing a product, and that is really throwing off all of our analysis. And you're going to make decisions based on faulty data. And I'm showing you that this is really a problem. And once they see it, the light bulb kind of goes off. And so I think getting a handle on what kind of data challenges you have as an organization, and then being able to do some ROI analysis, is really the key to getting everybody on board. Because, having good data is far more than just technology. The people that collect the data have to be trained to collect better data, or all of the stuff that we're doing is going to have weaknesses to it. Hence the rise in data engineering back end things that we then have to focus on. So getting a handle and understanding the challenges that your organization faces is really the first step to having an all-encompassing data strategy, so you can become an organization that truly leverages your data asset, which might be one of your most important assets that you have.
Okay, got your points. So at the time is almost up, but I want to highlight one thing. So
Sure.
I see this as interesting trend, and then I am not sure because of maybe the data ownership, the data retention, or vendor login. I do this is what I heard mostly, especially in Hong Kong. So people may be worrying about their control of data. So we don't have time to drill down to that. So maybe if any audience you have similar questions, feel free to reach out Bob so that he can also share his experience as well. So thanks once again for Bob's time here, and thanks for support.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bob at Interzoid.com. Happy to discuss any or drill into anything with anybody. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.